So, I've been playing through Witch Queen and enjoying the raid, but I want to take a moment to talk about Glaives because there are a few fundamental problems with them. And it seems Bungie is going out of their way to make sure these don't work properly. And throughout my testing, I've only become more and more frustrated trying to get these things to work in a build aside from the infinite invs hunter build, but there are better invs builds that don't require you to use a glaive, so why bother? The issue I have with Glaives is that Bungie can't seem to decide what kind of weapon it is. In the description of every glaive, it lists the melee attacks are kinetic. This is important, and I'll dive into why in a moment, but the other thing I want you to keep in mind is that it shoots and fires energy attacks. So with that in mind, let me show you the problems. The first problem is that there isn't a single melee-based exotic that works with the glaives. There isn't a single one that will boost the damage of the melee attack. Worm Gods don't work, Synthoceps don't work, Winter's Guile doesn't work, Karnstein's doesn't work, Liar's Handshake doesn't work, although that one was a little bit far-fetched. Point being, nothing works to boost the damage of the melee. So, after testing this, I thought, well, if it's an energy weapon, then technically I can boost the melee damage with Mantle of Battle Harmony, right? Nope, it doesn't work for the melee, but it works for the energy blast. Now, that will become a reoccurring theme, but that will be for later. Now, by this point in my testing, I was starting to get a little bit annoyed because it felt like the glaives were just bugged, and then I found out that this was done intentionally, and I can sort of prove it. Now, I was just farming bounties when this happened, but you can see that getting kills with the glaives melee attack counts towards the progress on this bounty that is asking for melee kills. So I thought, there's no way that this could count as an energy weapon kill as well, right? Nope, I was wrong. I hopped onto my Titan and picked up the Specialities bounty along with the Spitting Distance bounty from Shah Ha, and then proceeded to melee this drag directly in the face with the glaives melee attack, and it counted as both a melee and an energy weapon kill. So if the melee counts as both a melee weapon and an energy weapon, then why the fuck is it being purposely limited? Why is it being limited to not work with any exotic armor piece or buff regarding melee or energy weapons? If the melee counts as both a melee and an energy weapon, then why does nothing work to boost the attack of the melee? If it is clearly counted as a melee and an energy weapon kill, then why does Mantle of Battle Harmony not work with this? And if it clearly counts as a melee kill, then why do none of the melee-based exotics buff the melee? This isn't just limiting the weapon archetype, this is putting it in a prison before it could even see the sky or get its feet on the ground. And that's just the first problem. The second problem is that the mods don't work properly with glaives. Bowl of Ions won't buff the melee, Font of Might will buff the shooting aspect of the weapon but won't buff the melee, but if the melee counts as an energy weapon, then you would think it would. And this is why I say Bungie doesn't know what type of weapon this is. If the melee attack is a kinetic combo, then why is it counting as both an energy weapon and a melee weapon without being able to buff the melee attack of the glaive? If it clearly doesn't properly count as a kinetic weapon, and the melee can't be buffed by melee exotics or be buffed by things like Font of Might or Mantle of Battle Harmony, even though it counts the melee attack as an energy weapon, then why should I waste a slot running this? And I'm not even done with the mods yet. The big catch or hook to use glaives this season is to run Suppressive Glaive to blind enemies. But why run it if it doesn't even work on bosses or champions? You can't pair the mod with Suppressive Darkness because of the energy limit on your armor, and using Suppressive Darkness alone with a glaive is just way too much effort to make it succeed. Especially when I can put on a Blinding Grenade Launcher with 1 damage perk and see the same if not better results. If hunters are the only class that can have a half-decent build with these weapons, then why use them if you're a Titan or a Warlock? And it's not like you can use volatile rounds to proc off the melee attacks of the Enigma, and even if you use the projectile attack, primaries already outbeat it. And the exotic glaives are so useless and unworthy of taking up your exotic slot that the only reason you should go and get them is to have them in your collections if they ever become good. There is seemingly little to no point in running these things, which leads to the third problem. None of the damage increasing perks buff the melee attack. Not a single one. I tested Frenzy, Rampage, Surrounded, Swashbuckler, Unstoppable Force. The only one I have yet to test is Vorpal because I ran out of spoils twice before I could test it. I highly doubt that Vorpal will buff the melee. None of the perks do. What is the point of having a damage increasing perk when it won't even increase the damage of part of the weapon? I know it increases the projectile of the weapon, but with a magazine so small while taking up special ammo, you're literally better off running something else. Now, those are the main problems I have with the glaive. Now, is there any exotic that synergizes with them? Yes, hunters, you'll be glad to know that sealed Amakara grasps will work with glaives, but why run them if you can just put on Grave Robber, without having to take up an exotic slot? It just seemed like every time I turned a corner there was a roadblock waiting to cut me off immediately from making these things feel powerful in regards to their melee. So, is there any way to actually buff the melee of the weapon? Yes, I actually found 2 ways you can buff it. The first one is a mod called High Energy Fire. This will buff the damage of your melee attack as long as you have it up. The second way you can buff the melee attack is something only Titans can do. You need to put on Path the Burning Steps and have Firewalker activated. Surprisingly, Firewalker will buff the damage of the glaive, and it will continue to go higher than High Energy Fire could, in terms of a damage buff. However, there are a few problems. One, if you get a kill with the melee attack of the glaive, even if it's a solar glaive, it won't proc Firewalker, which is weird considering the melee, as we've already gone over, counts as an energy weapon. I don't know why it counts the melee weapon as a kinetic weapon when it clearly counts as an energy weapon whenever you're trying to complete bounties, but I guess Bungie will have to explain that to us because I can't find a reason myself. So, you'll want to have an Osmosis weapon for your abilities if you want to keep Firewalker activated. But the problem with that is the moment you switch off of it to your glaive, well, you lose your Osmosis weapon. The other problem is that High Energy Fire won't stack with Firewalker, unfortunately, so you can't have both. Now, if you like the projectile attack of Glaives, then this won't really be a problem for you, as you can just get a kill with the projectile of your weapon to keep proccing Firewalker as long as you have a solar glaive. The problem is, if you do that, you're going to run out of ammo quickly, and then it just becomes useless after a point. Now, I actually have a build to increase your Glaive's melee attack coming out in the next few days, but I'm not even sure if it's worth putting out because the effort is just too much to get this to work properly. The point being is that the only way to buff the melee attack of the weapon is either with High Energy Fire, or Firewalker, or Sunspots, or any other abilities on your classes. Otherwise, there's no other way. Now, I will say you can try Felwinter's Helm, but that's more of a debuff instead of a buff, and the setup for that to work is absolutely insane. Another shoutout is the Whisper of Rending Fragment for Stasis. Apparently this will buff your kinetic melee's combo if the target is frozen. But in testing, I couldn't get a definitive answer if this actually worked properly or if it didn't work. Glaives are clearly being limited, and honestly, they are not worth your time, as many other weapons can do their job better. Which is extremely unfortunate because I had such high hopes for these weapons and I was so excited for them, and now I'm just left with more disappointment. Hopefully Bungie will stop limiting these weapons and then we can actually build with them and use them like we want to. I don't see a reason why they should be limited, even for the excuse of balance, when we can actually and literally one-shot Riven with either a bonk or a Warlock Slap, or hell, even a Shield Bash now. But that's all I got. Let me know what you think below. My name's Super, Destiny Enthusiast, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.